You'd think getting a scholarship or a contract in football is the dream, right? You're working with a player, you help them get across the line, they perform, you perform, a club presents a scholarship. Maybe they're even getting paid on top of that. It should be perfect. On paper, it should be the dream. In my experience, it's not like that at all. It's about 50-50. 50% of the time, families are extremely grateful. Everything is smooth, they accept everything, and it's happy days. The other 50%, things start to go a bit sideways. And before I even get into that, let me just explain a little bit what it's like to be a football agent, because I was having a call with my lawyer, and I was basically explaining to him a situation that we had with a player in a club, getting a little bit of advice on certain legality stuff. And I was explaining to him, how funny people get when it comes to actually showing them, hey, here's the contract, you got to sign this and you got to sign this other contract, right? Because, I think people think that I live this dream life. People think that I, as a football agent, I'm, experiencing the highest of highs, and I get to work in football. And football is just this magnificent creature, and I get to straddle it, right? The truth is, while people would be right in the sense that I do get to experience the highest of highs in this industry, I also get to experience the lowest of lows. I get to share in the euphoric moments. Yes, when we sponsor a player and we deliver that news, fantastic. When a player is successful, they get signed a scholarship or a contract. Unreal most of the time. Just watching someone get their dream outcome, or clients just being super happy, super grateful, wanting to work for long periods of time. Yes, those are all great things. What you don't see is having to deal with disgruntled, unhappy parents that, expectations weren't met in their mind, and they need someone to blame for that. Players that are very talented getting kicked out because of behavior issues, just because they're stupid teenagers, not fun. Having to tell someone they're not getting re-signed. This is probably my least favorite conversation to have with players. Honestly, all the conversations where dreams literally end. A big part of my job is being honest to players, giving advice on, when they probably should stop, and, how to go about next steps, where their level is actually at. Those conversations are not fun, and you try to do the right thing, but you're always sort of going to be the bad guy in those situations. It really is brutal. You probably don't want to be an agent. I feel, honestly, I've grown to hate football. I absolutely hate football. The truth is, I can't bear to watch football. I've lost so much interest in this industry. That's what they say, right? Turn your passion into your job, because you're gonna lose that passion, right? Now, I'm very passionate about building the agency and the business and helping players and all these other things that comes along with it. And I have a great team who is also on this wavelength. But when it comes to actual football, the more I learn about my industry, the bigger I get, and the higher up the ranks that we go, the more I hate football. And so you don't want that, right? For starters. And look, the stuff I'm going to talk about in this video is really just probably the tip of the iceberg with stuff that we have to deal with. But what surprises me the most is that, even you sort of think that in those euphoric moments, there would be no one that would be upset. When you do the job and you get people across the line and they perform as well, and it's happy days, and before conversations you knew where you wanted to aim, people still get unhappy, even when they get the desired outcome. And that blows my mind, and I'm going to explain this. Ultimately, and I was explaining to my lawyer over the phone, what I realized happens is that greed essentially kicks in. And it's almost always because of the parents. Because I've actually never had issues with a player directly. It's almost always their parents who get involved and think they know anything about the industry, or what's right, what's wrong, what they want, this clause, that clause, and they just have no idea. There's no amount of you researching online or using ChatGPT or getting advice from a lawyer, or literally even if there's an ex-professional player telling you something, no one understands how it actually works behind the scenes, and the perspective that all these people have is so incredibly limited, and they always get in the way. I think what happens is, most people when they work with an agency, they understand how risky it is to become a football player. People come to us because they need our services, right? If it was easy to work with clubs, if clubs actually gave a fuck about players, I would be out of business, because what would I do? You know, but the reality is that no, they don't care about players and you're just another number to them. And so you actually do need people behind you to actually help you. And so, ta-da, that's why we exist, right? And so before that process, when people are going there and they're trialing and they're covering their own stuff and, you know, they trust you. And it's so easy to work it, you know, with people in that regard. So it's very clear, it's very clean. But the moment a contract gets offered or a scholarship gets offered and we start going into discussion with clubs and obviously have to let the players and parents know, boy do people get greedy and suddenly they think they've got Messi on their hands. And it's really unbelievable. And I'm talking to you like the players that I work with, to give you like an idea, they are amateur players. Like that is where our bread and butter right now. We are just trying to help amateur players. Sure, do we help the odd semi-pro player that's getting $100 a week at MPL level? Yes. But the real players we help are the players that don't have pathways up. It's players that know they're not going to go into the A-League system. Like it's players that know that pathway is looking cold for them. Those are the players we help. And so you got to understand, people get greedy when they have nothing, you know, like they have no nothing. I don't know how to explain this, but they've never actually gotten paid. That no club has ever invested a cent in them. And the minute one shows any sort of interest, it's like, oh, well, they also need to do this, and they need to do that, and they need to do this. And it's like, look, I'm going to be very clear. I don't want any sort of miscommunication. Most of the time, at bare minimum, clubs will absolutely cover like all fees. Like they will cover the food, the accommodation, the transport, you know, any club fees, like all registration fees, like everything, right? Like the player won't actually need to do anything, even visas as well, like whatever they need. But, you know, on top of that, there's also, you know, they might offer, you know, some money, you know, like a monthly thing or weekly thing or whatever. But on top of all this, which is awesome for a first sort of transition as an amateur player, I've gotten parents asking me for them to fund their apartment so then they could live over there with the player. For the club to fund, no, they need to be paying X amount per month. No, they need to do this. And it's like, I just can't believe the audacity of people, to be honest. And stuff has fallen through the cracks because of parents like this. But look, the truth is, like, where was all this attitude beforehand? Because people come to us and they're desperate and they have nothing, right? You have nothing to show. And then we get you something to show, and then you start pressing. And it's so weird. I find that dynamic so weird. And I feel like this is the thing that I would love to say personally to people, but this would be just too outrageous. But I hope people watch this video and actually understand it. If you're an amateur player and you've never gotten jack, and all of a sudden you get offered something, I want to make this very clear to you right now. You have zero leverage. Let me say that again. You have zero leverage. You can't push for anything. Nothing. If you're not Messi, Neymar, Ronaldo, like if you are not absolutely outrageous as a player, which I promise you're not, you have no leverage. And this is also in the fact that, now I'm going to mention this because I want to be transparent about the stuff that's happened in the past. We could have signed so many other players, but because people start to be smart in these situations, because I'll sort of explain how we work with my agency specifically. For example, no one really signs anything with us in terms of, you know, we are their official agents and they have to go, they're locked in for 2 years, we're taking their wage, like all that sort of stuff. No one signs any of that until we get them an outcome. So once an offer comes through the door, whether it's a scholarship or a contract, whatever it is, and we present it and they want to accept it, then before they accept that, we present them with our official contract, right? And then they sign that official contract, and it is a 2-year contract. To be very straight up with you guys, 90% of the time, we don't take any wage because they're not getting paid much anyways, but there is clauses in there where we do take quite a good figure of their future transfer fee, because that is what we actually want, is to keep working with them and sell them off. Just to be clear, obviously players do sign other stuff, you know, before they work with us, just it's sort of common sense stuff of what they can and can't do, but nothing that locks them in to anything serious. It's just all standard business stuff. I just want to make that comment so I don't get sued. But I believe the way I've structured with the agency and everything, it's very fair. You know, you don't sign anything until we actually get you an offer. And even when we get the offer, we actually refund players the money that they pay us for the representation. We start working them for free because obviously we both did our jobs, etc., etc. It should be clear as day. But because parents think they have Messi on their hands, I've had a handful of people throughout these last sort of 7 years not want to sign that contract. Because I'll be real, I don't change any clause on any of my contracts for any player. Like I just don't. And honestly, if people see the contract, it's almost like presenting a prenup to someone, right? Like if you're in a relationship and you present a prenup to someone and they feel a certain way about that, and they show you that they don't want to get married if they have a prenup, you probably shouldn't marry them because something's up, right? And so I feel like this is the same thing. If I present a contract to you and you're going to fight me on a few clauses, and this goes for players, it goes to people I wanted to hire, like so many different facets, right? Even clubs, when I present our contracts to clubs and there's stuff that they want out of the contracts, guess what? I just pulled the plug on the whole thing. I don't change anything for anyone. If you come to me for help, like you're going to play by my rules. Like I think people, one, misunderstand how ruthless you have to be in this industry to actually move up the ranks. For a long time, I sort of kept it under the radar, but like, I'd like to think I'm a good person and, you know, I'm very happy-go-lucky and I pretty much always show the best side of me. But the truth is, behind the scenes, when I have to actually have business discussions with clubs and actually push things through, I am quite ruthless and I do have to step on people a lot and I do get stepped on, and you know, like business is like you're going to war all the time. And I think people don't like realize that, and so they think that you know, they can push for extras here and that, and it's just like, no, like if you think like if I go soft on you, I'm just gonna go soft on the club, like I'm not even worth anything in that regard, right? And so look, I digress. I've had players look at this contract, look at our contract, look at the club contract, and I'm telling you, like I'm making it very clear, these aren't bad contracts. It's not like anyone's getting taken advantage of. I'm quite fair. Like I'm very fair with everything that we do. And like I said, and the stuff that they get, it's not that they're turning it down because they're not getting a good offer from the club. No, they're not paying a cent, you know, like these are good offers. These are good offers. I'm glad we got that out of the way. Good offers. I've had parents go no. Or if they didn't say no to me, I've had parents message the club directly and try and finalize it and push us aside. And look, I think this happens because, like I mentioned, like the greed or people's egos or whatever, or, you know, they just think they have something better than what they have. What you don't realize is even if you're watching this and you're not a player that ever got a scholarship or contract, even if you become a player that gets offered a scholarship or a contract, congratulations. It's huge. Not everyone gets it, and you should be very proud of yourself. But on the other side of the coin, if I'm being super honest, there's probably like, I don't know, 10 million other players that could replace you quite easily. And it's not that you are unbelievably talented. I think that's what people don't understand. Like, I think while you have to perform for sure, it's really like a 70-30. I think when you really understand how this world works, it's like a 70-30. 70% whoever's pushing you and actually doing the actual labor behind the scenes, 30% your performance. Now, one cannot live without the other. Like, your performance is very important, and it's just as important, even though I'm not saying it's 50-50, because if we do 70% of the work to a player that's shit, yeah, he's probably not going to get signed because that 30% is missing. But I would argue I've signed players that were extremely overlooked here in Australia. So it's sort of like that's the actual split. It's a 70-30 split. We need each other. Agencies and players, you need each other, and you each has to do their role. But what happens? Those parents that went behind the back and tried to then negotiate on themselves. I don't like the fact that I had to do this, but I just pulled the plug on everything. I just told the club, hey, this player doesn't want to sign with me. And now that they've done this, I don't actually feel comfortable representing them and giving them this entry point, because it's going to be a player that takes you for granted, doesn't appreciate the work you do, thinks that they've done it all on their own, which is fine. People are up to their own opinions. And then after those 2 years, if they go further, guess what? They're going to leave me or someone else for a bigger fish, which is fine. Like, to each their own. But once I see that, I get a whiff of that, I just pull the plug. And I've told clubs before, I've done this 3 times. I've told the clubs, hey, pull the plug. Within 48 hours, that club won't remember your name anymore. I'm saying this because I want to be transparent. I want people to actually know how this industry works. A club will never risk their relationship with someone like me or our agency and the work that we provide them, because, by the way, we make them a lot of money in the sense of, yes, we send them players, but we do a plethora of other business stuff for them. Like, agencies, it's not just players to clubs. Like, we do a lot of other back-end stuff for clubs that make them money. And so in a business, you're not going to turn down the possibility of making continued business here over the risk of one amateur player that's transitioning to their first contract or scholarship. Players don't understand this. It is what it is. And for those players, like obviously it sucks for me because I would have loved the marketing of it, but they died. They came back, and I'm pretty sure all of them are playing NPL under 23s. And they've just been living there for years. Like, no one knows their name, they've done nothing. And so it's like, you know, people overvalue their talent and undervalue all the other stuff they need to get done that they didn't see to get them across the line. You know, one little, I know I've been talking for a while, but one little extra story. You know, this video stemmed because the other day I got into a screaming match with a parent. I had just provided them with the great news that their boy or girl is getting signed to this big club, and they're going to be playing very high up in the club. The club's paying for everything, and it's a professional contract. Like, this player will be getting paid, okay? And they'll be playing, I don't want to say too much because it'll be too obvious, but look, they're going to get a good wage, and they get everything covered as well. Accommodation, food, transport, all this stuff, everything covered by the club for a full year. I think we're pushing for it to be a 2-year contract as well. Anyways, with the player, fantastic. It's so easy to work with this player, so easy to work with his mum. It's great, right? Love him. Character, 10 out of 10. The dad, however, called me the other day and was upset. And what was he upset about? He was upset because I gave advice to this player, letting them know, like, hey, you need to let your club know that this is happening and you need to be free for the window coming up because I need to make sure that you're transferred over there. And I think it's very sound advice, you know, not burn bridges and just be honest, and that's sort of the right way to go about things. And I did have a game plan for it to limit the stress on the player and limit any bad outcomes. Anyways, dad called me and he was upset because I was giving advice to this player. Mind you, they're not underage. This player's over 18. And so, anyways, and he's worried that they're going to get benched because they've seen that clubs, when they see that players get other stuff like this, they just bench them. That was his worry. He was screaming at me because I was giving poor advice. I don't give a fuck about your club here in Australia, right? Like, if you are coming to me for a solution and a dream outcome, that is priority number one. Making sure that transfer goes through the door and across the other side is already complicated enough. It is priority number one. If you have to sit on the bench for a few months, I could not care less. No one's going to remember that. And I personally don't want to be involved in anything shady and lying to clubs or, you know, being smart about things or whatever. It'll just bite you in the back. I only do it when I have to do it, when I know it's an Australian club that's, like, you know, renowned for being complicated. Okay, well then I do what I have to do. But for the most part, I want to have a clean image. This dad then hit me with, because obviously I was getting quite upset and sort of pressing back and going, you know, anyways, I said some things I shouldn't have said. He hit me with, you negotiated a low wage because you saw the current contract. Just for reference, I got his kid 10 times more than what they're getting paid here at an NPL club. 10 times more. And he had the audacity to say that to me. And by the way, I actually got that before I even saw their contract here in Australia. And this is what I mean. People get the opportunity, like, people get the outcome and everything goes awesome, you know, and they trust us all the way. And then as soon as it comes to the point of finalizing deals, it makes me not want to do my job anymore. Because it's like, well, I got to put up with all this other BS all the time. And then when we actually do what we need to do and go actually above and beyond, it's still not good enough sometimes. And I'll say this straight, and just like I told him, because look, this is how I am, this is what it is. If you want to work with us, great. If you don't, good luck. If you get a contract or a scholarship, you should be kissing the ground that me and my team walk on. And there's no other space in between for anything else. Like, there's just not. It's like a zero tolerance. And I'm not even saying this because of ego. I'm saying this because you just don't have the perspective of what it actually took to make this happen. And you never will. And that's like the frustrating thing. But I also thought this would be an interesting video because it's an insight, you know, on how the human psyche works and how funny people can get even when they get the desired outcomes. And you might be commenting, I would never, like, I'd be over the moon or whatever. And sure, You probably would be. Like I said, it's a 50-50. But ultimately, I'm not here to please everyone. Definitely not going to be everyone's cup of tea. I'm just here to get outcomes. And if you pay me, the job is to try and get you an outcome. Dad and I did not get to where we got to by being soft. I promise you that. And if you think your ego is big, promise you mine, unfortunately, is bigger because I do this for a living, right? And so, I mean, put yourself in my shoes. I have to talk to people and negotiate deals with people that work with big first and second division clubs, you know, and they think that their shit doesn't stink because they're competing in the Europa League and, you know, they're this big old club. But look, if you're serious about this pathway and you actually want an agent that's going to have a zero BS tolerance for you and clubs and actually strive to get you the desired outcome, as long as you're not going to be a headache if you do get a scholarship or a contract, there's a link down below. You can speak to my team. It's a free consultation. Anything you need, advice, questions, whatever, they would be more than happy to guide you.